fun to start those seeds in the greenhouse in the winter months, or take those cuttings in the fall so you can have plants in the garden and in the landscape that you actually created, at least in some form. The danger, we get too excited, we are tired of the cold, we're tired of the gray, we're tired of not having anything green, growing, and scented to be able to touch, feel, and smell. We start those seeds too early, or we take those cuttings and then we sort of let them do their own thing. There are some dangers in that, and that has to do particularly with the seeds of the plants that love it hot. These are some great examples. These are zinnias that were started the end of January, only a little while ago. They have already put on their true leaves. Now they're leaning toward the sun. We moved them in the greenhouse so we could actually see the camera angle a little bit better. But they are already beginning to stretch, and they are already showing some of the issues associated with living in a greenhouse in the winter months and potentially for too long. And that would be, we have some of these that are tipping over. This is probably damping off that is happening. We have all that leaning. We're going to have to do something called pinching. Tomatoes are another great example. Who doesn't love tomatoes? Of course, I get to get mine first. I want tomatoes that are big and luscious and lovely by the 4th of July. I'm going to start my tomato seeds early. Well, these have clearly just germinated, and they don't even have true leaves yet. They're way stretched already. By the time it is time in the spring to put them out in the landscape or in the garden, because temperatures have to be warm for both of these, if you don't do some pinching or some training of these particular plants, they're going to end up being way too stretched, way too long, way too floppy, and not doing what you want them to do. So realistically, on the plants that love it warm, unless you have very specific uses for them, you want to wait, look at that seed packet, and make sure that you are not planting 2 or 3 months too early. Frost-free date is really important with the ones that like it warm. That's not until May, and this year we might still have snow on the ground in May. So back that up, start 6 to 8 weeks earlier. Make sure that you give those plants enough light, not too much fertilizer, enough water, but not too much so that they don't damp off. And then be prepared to pinch and train those plants so that they will stay short and stocky, a little closer to the ground, so they're tough little plants. This rosemary is a good example actually of plants that have been pinched. So you can look over here on the corner and you can see that this has started to branch. Up here, no branching has happened. And if this one gets pinched off and done correctly, and then the plants are still managed properly, it will go ahead and branch instead of trying to grow up into a tree-like form. Better for the plant, better for what it will look like when it moves out into the landscape. And while this isn't really easy to see, this is one of the geraniums that actually has a great scent if you could smell it through the camera. This one also has been pinched and made squattier and shorter, so it has that foliage. It isn't stretching, getting too long, because of course these are ones that were taken from cuttings as opposed to started from seed. So the long and the short of it, literally, is you want to make sure you start those seeds at the right time. Make sure you give them the right conditions in the greenhouse. If you've taken the cuttings, pay attention. Coleus, which we always love to start for our backyard farmer garden, can be like this and already flowering if we aren't paying attention to keeping it in check.